By October 5th, your reality either tilts or it doesn't. There isn't a grace period or a secret extension. There isn't a circle back when it's convenient clause in the fine print. The timing here is exact, and the window is narrow. That might sound dramatic, but sit with it for a second. There's a difference between fear-driven urgency and a precise invitation that arrives right on schedule. This is the latter. For months, maybe longer, your life has been quietly setting this moment up, laying track in places you couldn't see yet, refining your stamina in seasons that felt like stalls. Nothing wasted, nothing random, all of it bending toward a single point of convergence. And yes, it can feel like a lot, but that heaviness you feel isn't a warning. It's a signal that the door you've been walking toward is now within reach. If you've ever thought, I'm doing everything, but nothing is moving, you're not wrong. You're just standing in a phase most people mislabel. It's the training zone that looks still from the outside. It's the treadmill feeling. Your heart is pounding, your legs are burning, and yet the scenery refuses to change. The mind takes that snapshot and says, see, this effort leads nowhere. But there's a deeper voice in you that doesn't buy it. That voice has been soft but stubborn, a pressure you can't shake. It's been telling you, the apparent stillness isn't the absence of movement, it's stored momentum. October 5th is when stored momentum becomes visible motion. Think of how the atmosphere behaves before rain, how the air thickens and the sky lowers. For long stretches, nothing happens. No thunder, no downpour, just a gathering. The impatient calls it stagnation. But anyone who's watched storms knows the build is the event. The pressure isn't a mistake, it's evidence. Your life has mirrored that pattern. Layers upon layers of effort, lessons, almost redirections, and long quiet nights that didn't generate immediate fireworks. Those weren't gaps in your story. They were the story. Compaction before release, roots before bloom, rehearsal before the curtain lifts. Here's the paradox. The closer you get to a threshold, the more your old assumptions push back. Doubt drags a chair up to your desk and acts like it owns the place. It whispers, what if this is just more of the same? But look at the facts beneath the feelings. The setbacks didn't leave you where they found you. You learned how to stay, how to get up, how to read the room of your own psyche. You learned to notice the quiet data points, small compliments that landed bigger than usual, tiny coincidences that felt too precise to be random, a new conversation that nudged your path 2 degrees to the right. None of those look like headlines. Yet add them together, and they draw a contour around this moment that's hard to ignore. The calendar doesn't make October 5th meaningful. Your accumulation does. The date simply spotlights what the work has already made true. So what does it mean to say this must find you before October 5th? It means you don't strong-arm the door. You let the door recognize you. Opportunities meet identity, not impatience. A window finds you, and who you are today matches the frequency of what's waiting on the other side. That match isn't mystical or mysterious. It's practical alignment. Your habits with your hopes, your attention with your intention, your boundaries with your values. The months of quiet practice have been tuning you to that match. The reason this date matters is because alignment thrives on rhythm, and rhythms crest. Miss the crest, and the next set will roll in. Just not this set, not this combination of conditions, not this exact choreography of people, timing, and readiness. If you've been haunted by the sense that your life has been on hold, reframe it. Holds aren't pauses, they're staging. Backstage, lights are being set, marks taped to the floor, sound checked, props placed. On stage, the curtain doesn't move. In the seats, the audience fidgets. But when the cue hits, everything that felt idle suddenly proves essential. That's why urgency belongs here, but not the frantic kind that flails and clutches. This is the clean urgency of presence. When you're present, you notice the cue. You see how the random practice, the dull repetition, the long, thankless reps have been building muscle memory for a very specific choreography. October 5th isn't a random square on a wall planner. It's the cue mark. Let's talk about that whisper you've been hearing, the one that contradicts the defeatist storyline. It isn't naive optimism. It's pattern recognition. You've clocked how similar almost keep clustering. You've watched stale dynamics strain under their own weight. You felt your tolerance dropping for the versions of yourself that overspent energy on what never reciprocated. That's not burnout alone. That's direction. It's your system clearing space so something more congruent can land. And that congruence doesn't ask for theatrics. It asks for a few precise yes and a few non-negotiable numbers. The window finds people who are findable, people who've stopped camouflaging themselves in obligations that dilute their signal. None of this means the moment is guaranteed to hand you everything tied up with a silver bow. It means the conditions are rare and ripe for a meaningful pivot if you show up as the person your preparation has already sculpted. What shows up for you may not match your oldest picture of success, and that's good news. Old pictures were drawn with yesterday's crayons. The past few months have given you better tools and truer colors. You might find that the breakthrough is less about a lottery ticket and more about a key sliding into a lock that fits now. What mattered was never the spectacle. It was the switch from scattering energy to consolidating it with intent. If part of you is bracing for disappointment because you've been here before, calendar dates circled, promises made, fresh starts declared, name that honestly. But don't let old fatigue drive the car. The difference this time is the density of your groundwork. You aren't chasing novelty. You're answering a summons. You've got repetitions in the bank. You've got scars that taught you where your edges are. You've got new instincts about what's worth your time. That is leverage. Leverage doesn't need volume. It needs the right fulcrum. And time-sensitive openings are fulcrums. They multiply modest effort into outsized movement. Not because the universe owes you a favor, but because you're finally applying force where the system wants to turn. Here's how to let the moment find you without forcing it. First, clear the fuzz. In the days leading up to October 5th, reduce one unnecessary input for every necessary output you want to deliver. Trade a doom scroll for a deliberate check-in with your priorities. Trade a reflexive yes for a surgical no. Attention is finite. You're going to need it. Second, anchor your mornings. Give the first 10 minutes to alignment, not reaction. Pen on paper, breath and body, one sentence about who you're being today that your future self would recognize as a match. Third, take one visible step that proves you believe you're already in the zone of possibility. Not a grand gesture, just a concrete move a person who expects alignment would make. Send that message, polish that deck, block that hour, tidy the workspace, prep that pitch. That tiny external proof changes your internal posture. You stop auditioning for your future and start inhabiting it. And finally, stay honest with your pace. A narrow window doesn't mean sprint blindly. It means move cleanly. Clean movement is purposeful, not panicked. You'll feel the difference immediately. Panic is noisy and brittle. Purpose is quiet and firm. Panic multitasks. Purpose single threads. Panic begs. Purpose chooses. There's no begging here. There is choosing. There is meeting a moment that's been traveling toward you at the same speed you've been traveling toward it, whether you knew it or not. On October 5th, the two paths intersect. Not forever. Not again like this. But long enough for you to step across if you're ready. So, yes, this must find you before October 5th because after that, this exact configuration dissolves. Life will keep offering openings, new ones, different ones, but not this one with these variables, this storyline, these invitations, this version of you with this set of lessons still warm in your hands. That is not meant to scare you. It's meant to focus you. There's a right time to harvest, a right time to speak, a right time to knock, and a right time to answer because the knock is already at your door. You don't need a trumpet blast to recognize it. You just need to trust what you've been training yourself to hear. When the knock aligns with the house you've been building inside you, you open. That's it. That's the move. You're not late. You are right on time for the life that asked you to learn patience, to build stamina, to keep showing up when applause was nowhere to be found. You've done the unglamorous work of becoming legible to the opportunities that can actually use what you carry. And now the window is here, brief, exact, alive. Let it find you ready, not rushed. Let it find you occupied with the work that proves you understood the assignment. Prepare, notice, answer. The rest unfolds from there, precisely because you honored the terms of the invitation. October 5th is not magic. It's alignment made visible. And alignment at last moves. If alignment moves, accumulation is how it gathers its strength. We confuse quiet with emptiness. We label stillness as nothing. But the seasons that feel static are less like dead air and more like a storm stacking moisture, sheet by sheet, until the sky can't hold it anymore. You've seen this 100 times without naming it. The light goes flat, the wind disappears, and it almost feels as if the world forgot how to breathe. That eerie pause is not a stall. It's a pressure chamber. When the release finally comes, we call it sudden. It wasn't. It was scheduled by the math of buildup. Your life obeys that math more than your mood does. Think of the weeks you've spent doing the right things with no applause. Waking before dawn to get the work in, rewriting the same paragraph until it finally makes sense, showing up for responsibilities no one else noticed. In those stretches, you weren't failing, you were saturating. The system was taking on more moisture, more roots, more repetition than your eyes could measure. Growth always goes underground first. Forests do it. Muscles do it. Relationships do it. Even confidence does it. Outwardly, no movement. Inwardly, scaffolding. Seeds are honest about this. They don't apologize for the time they spend invisible. They split in the dark, send roots sideways, and anchor themselves long before a single green thread breaks the surface. We rush the sprout and miss the sequence. Depth precedes height. Stability precedes speed. The root web has to be dense enough to hold what's coming, or the first hard wind turns breakthrough into breakage. The most generous thing a season of stillness gives you is structure. Boring, essential, load-bearing structure. If you need a human case study, think about Nikola Tesla. Strip away the myth glow, and what remains is a person logging failure after failure while refining an idea that refused to leave him alone. Alternating current didn't become the backbone of modern electrification because a single attempt worked. It became inevitable because repeated attempts taught him what didn't. Each no from reality was a compass correction. Every misfire cut away an angle that would never carry current safely. That's what accumulation does. It converts disappointment into data and folds it back into the design. Athletes understand the arithmetic too. They practice in silence, run miles no one counts, lift weights no one cheers, and accumulate microscopic gains that don't look like anything until they do. Whole seasons can tally nothing but losses on paper, and yet inside the athlete, a different ledger is filling. Better footwork, more efficient breath, a thicker mental callus, a tighter circle of focus. Then one meet snaps open. One race lands. From the outside, it looks like a miracle. From the inside, it feels like a receipt. Here's why this matters before October 5th. Accumulation is not random hoarding of effort. It's targeted compaction, like a snow cornice forming at a ridgeline. Your work settles in layers. Each pass of wind packs the crystals tighter until the internal structure reaches a tipping point. Then a single sound, a single step, and the whole face slides. Not because of the last noise, but because all the layers beneath had already committed to move. Overnight success is just how delayed motion reads to the casual observer. There's a concept in training called the lag between stimulus and adaptation. You stress the system dips. You rest. The system rebuilds a little stronger than before. Repeat. During the dip, everything in you wants to label it failure, because today's numbers look worse than yesterday's. But the curve was never about today. It was about the body learning, at a level you can't feel in real time, how to carry more load with less leak. You can drag this insight into any domain: sales cycles, creative output, emotional healing, leadership. First the dip, then the rebuild, then the carry. Even machines tell this truth. A flywheel takes time to get up to speed, demanding consistent input while paying you almost nothing. The early pushes feel useless, but somewhere along the way, friction yields to momentum. The wheel begins to return your investment. Every additional effort now adds more speed than it costs. Crucially, if you stop before that threshold, you'll swear the device was a scam. If you stay with it, you'll wonder how you ever thought it was still. Accumulation doesn't just add, it compounds. Compounding is quiet until it isn't, all of which explains the ache of the treadmill year. You were moving, sweating, staying in the room, and yet your feet didn't change. That is precisely what a compaction period feels like from the inside, demand without display. The mind invents a verdict, pointless, because it can't see below the surface. But the mind's view is too shallow for root work, and roots are where stability lives. You are not meant to live in perpetual spectacle. You are meant to become someone whose unseen integrity can support visible weight. So, when discouragement says, look around, nothing's different, try a better metric. Don't ask, is it flashy yet? Ask, is it denser? Are your boundaries clearer? Is your craft cleaner? Are your habits less negotiable? Do you return to center faster after a wobble? Do you waste less time explaining yourself to situations that can't hear you? That is compaction. That is readiness. That is the storm finding its form. You might be tempted to throw out hard numbers here, 10,000 hours and all that, but the truest thresholds rarely honor round figures. They honor congruence. Accumulation figures out what you actually mean by your goals. Not what you say you want, but what your calendar, your body, and your choices have voted for. If the vote is split, the sky keeps holding its reign. If the vote tilts even slightly, nature responds. It only looks mystical until you remember that systems like coherence more than chaos. When your small actions stop arguing with your big statements, weather happens. And yes, it's generous that nature gives you signals, the softened air, the darker clouds, the way birds go quiet before the first drop. But recognizing a front is different from resenting the lull. The lull is part of the front. You don't get a downpour without the held breath. You don't get the open door without the hours that made you legible to it. Rush this phase, and you carry the same patterns forward. Honor it, and you let the old patterns decompose into fuel. Compost isn't pretty. It's necessary. There's a craftsperson's humility in all of this. Blacksmith's heat, hammer, quench, reheat. The metal complains, then concedes, then becomes something more useful than raw or could ever be. Baker's proof dough. Musicians practice scales. Epidemiologists gather base rates before chasing outliers. Different worlds, same law. Repetition stores energy in form. When the cue arrives, you don't rise to the moment. You fall back on your level of preparation. Accumulation ensures that level is high enough to hold the opportunity's weight. So what do you do inside a stacking season? You curate inputs and keep cadence. You choose the few drills that matter and get unervingly consistent. You let boredom be a teacher rather than a trap. Boredom often means you've moved from novelty to mastery mode, where refinement hides inside repetition. That's where athletes shave tense from start, where a pianist finds softness in a phrase, where a founder stops pitching to anyone who will listen and learns to qualify the room. It's not glamorous. It's effective. You also learn to stop arguing with gravity. Gravity in this context is the set of constraints that won't budge. Your current resources, your current responsibilities, your current season of life. Accumulation works with what is, not with what you wish were true. A seed that insists on blooming in January is not driven. It's doomed. Your timeline isn't a punishment. It's a protection. It keeps you from blooming into weather that can't sustain you. Which brings us back to why the release feels on time. It isn't lucky. It's lawful. The right day is the day the system can carry the stress of success without buckling. That day cannot be argued into existence, but it can be prepared for. The question isn't, when will the rain come? It's, have I built a landscape that can absorb it? Floods ruin what fields can't hold. A sudden surge of attention, authority, revenue, or love will wash out a life with poor channels. Accumulation is channel building. It's tedious. It's how you avoid erosion. If you've come this far, you may already feel the shift. The lull is respectable now. It has a job. You can stop demanding fireworks from every workout and every workday. You can let the sky be heavy without calling it broken. You can treat the quiet months like the gym for your capacity, places where you go to grow, not to be seen. And when people ask, what's new? You can answer honestly, integrity. It's not an applause line. It's a foundation. When October 5th arrives, it won't reward noise. It will reward density. It will read your roots. It will test the welds you've been strengthening offstage. And the release won't look like chaos. It will look like inevitability. Not because the universe skipped the line for you, but because you stayed long enough for compaction to do what compaction does. Make scattered effort coherent. Make loose soil hold. Make a thin trickle of progress thicken into a current strong enough to carry you forward. All at once, suddenly, right on time. If the build is real, it rarely announces itself with fireworks. It sends whispers, tiny anomalies, small tilts in the day that don't fit the old pattern. This is where people either roll their eyes or lean in. The difference is everything. Because the earliest signs of a turning point almost never look like turning points. They look like noise. A stranger says a sentence that lands like a bell in your chest. A problem that's been jammed for months gives half an inch. A person who never had time for you suddenly makes room. None of these are billboards. They're breadcrumbs. But each one says, keep your eyes open. The weather already changed. It can be as unglamorous as a manager who finally gives feedback that isn't vague, or a client who asks for a second conversation instead of a polite exit. The impulse is to shrug. Nice, but probably nothing. Yet the mind that's been gathering quiet data knows better. One variable doesn't make a trend, but it's the leading edge of one. And leading edges matter when a window approaches. Before October 5th, this is how the shift tends to behave. The baseline wobbles upward in tiny, testable ways, just enough to reward attention, just enough to teach you the new rhythm, just enough to see if you'll treat small signals like the seeds they are. Sometimes the whispers were the disguise of almosts. You nearly close the deal. The song almost lands. The application advances one round further than last time. Almost stings, but it also sharpens. Researchers call this a near-success effect for a reason. The proximity wakes you up. Your brain enters a higher resolution mode where tiny cues jump into focus. You start noticing which words opened a door and which ones shut it. You catch micro-expressions. You feel when to stop talking and when to press. Near success is not proof you're cursed. It's proof you're within range. The system is giving you practice in the exact environment you're about to inhabit for real. Think about the entrepreneur who has pitched in 100 rooms and learned to recognize indifference at 20 paces. One day, the apathy isn't there. The questions are sharper, the follow-ups faster, the emails closer together. Revenue doesn't triple overnight, but the silence isn't silent anymore. That's not an accident. It's a fissure in the dam. And if you treat it like random luck, you miss your role in widening it. Momentum doesn't knock once. It tests the hinges. Your job is to answer with behavior that says, yes, I saw that. Yes, I'm ready to scale that. Or picture the person at work who has felt wallpapered for years. Always there, rarely seen. Out of nowhere, their director asks them to actually weigh in on something consequential. You could read that as a courtesy, or you could read it as the first sighting of a new story. Your competence registered, your voice carried, your presence altered the room. The right move isn't to inflate your ego, it's to raise your standard. Prepare like the next ask will be bigger, because it likely will. Signals compound when you treat them like forecasts, not flukes. Whispers aren't always external. Sometimes they're emotional micro-shifts, a cause of dread that mysteriously loses voltage, a courage that shows up uninvited at 7 a.m., a thought loop that suddenly has an exit. You wake and a heavy fog is thin enough to see through. Nothing in your calendar explains it, but you feel different. That's a sign. Not that it's done, but that internal friction dropped, and when friction falls, motion can do what motion does. If you've ever pushed a heavy desk alone, you know the moment. First it resists, then it slides, then you wonder why you thought it was impossible. Anxiety can do that too. It loosens a centimeter and invites you to push again. New people can signal the turn more loudly than your to-do list. You meet someone who simplifies what you've been overcomplicating. A mentor arrives who doesn't flatter you, but calibrates you, tightens a bolt you didn't know was loose. A peer appears who moves like you move and normalizes the pace you've been afraid to hold. The introduction feels random, but it isn't. Windows are relational. Bridges need people on both sides. When the right faces enter frame, it's not because you manifested a cast. It's because your story reached the part where these characters belong. There's a trap here. The louder frustration gets, the easier it is to miss the soft signs entirely. This is the weird timing of breakthroughs. The discouragement peaks right as the whispers start. You're tired, so you filter for failure. Your eyes expect nothing, so they file away something as an error. What helps is a simple mental habit. Assume the signal exists. Don't force it. Don't invent omens and toast crumbs. Just hold the stance that tiny evidence is already present and worth noticing. That stance changes how you move through a room, how you listen, how you end an email, how you enter a meeting. Not mystical, practical. You catch what you're prepared to see. And when you catch it, you mark it. Literally. Write it down. One line. She asked for my proposal, not generic follow-up. Two strangers used the same phrase about my work. Energy back this morning for no obvious reason. Why bother? Because the signal is subtle and your memory is dramatic. On bad days, your mind will produce a highlight reel of nothing ever changes. A small log defeats that lie in 30 seconds. Patterns pop when they're stacked. 3 entries across a week can reveal a slope you'd never feel in a single morning. The second step is response, measured, not manic. Whispered signals aren't invitations to blow up your life. They're cues to make smart, specific moves that put you in the path of larger ones. If a manager seeks your thought, deliver it clearly and on time. Then offer 1 inch more value than expected. If a customer tugs on a thread, pull it, build a quick draft, ask the next question, open the prototype. If a collaborator sparks, set the next conversation while the ember is warm. Treat the small thing like it matters and the big thing like it's coming. By the way, treat the small thing like it matters doesn't mean turn molehills into mountains. It means precision. You adjust 1 degree where the wind actually shifted. You don't panic pivot your entire business model because one person clapped. You don't rewrite your personality because a date liked a joke. You stay yourself. You sharpen your edges. The window is looking for you, not a cosplay version of you. Signals refine, they don't erase. Let's address the ghost in the room. What about false positives? What about the meetings that feel promising and ghost you? The drafts that sing in your room and die in the world? The texts that start a conversation and vanish? They're part of the field. A pressure system doesn't turn every cloud into rain. Some drift, some evaporate. Your job isn't to bet everything on a single puff of vapor. Your job is to keep reading the sky. Enough real signals create a humidity you can feel, sticky, heavy, undeniable. That's when you rearrange your day, clear your decks, and prepare for a downpour. Until then, you build capacity and keep your kit dry. There's also the signal you send. Algorithms, human and digital, respond to clarity. When you state what you're about succinctly and consistently, doors that couldn't recognize you before suddenly do. If you've been broadcasting 10 frequencies, don't be shocked the right receivers missed you. The quiet season is the perfect time to choose your channel and stick to it so that when opportunity scans, you can lock on. October 5th won't find a scrambled signal. It will find a tuned one. And yes, since this is a conversation we're having in real time, there's a social layer to recognize. When tiny signs start surfacing, capture the momentum by naming your participation. I'm in a room, I'm entering coherence, I'm choosing the next right move. Language like this matters less as a hashtag and more as an internal commitment. It aligns your posture with your path. If you feel called to support the field that supports you, engage, like, comment, send the link to someone you know is standing at their own threshold. Not out of superstition, but because attention compounds where communities point it. Pragmatically, you can engineer more signals by changing where you stand. If you keep looking only in rooms that never reflect you back, you'll conclude nothing's happening. Move 3 feet. Put your work in front of people who can actually say yes. Ask a better question in a meeting. Offer a specific solution instead of a general enthusiasm. Audit your inputs for 1 week and replace one low-grade stream with a higher quality source. Small shifts create new intersections, and intersections are where signals ride in. Finally, remember this. Whispers are acts of respect. Reality isn't trying to trick you. It's inviting you to partnership. If everything arrived as a trumpet blast, your agency would atrophy. By keeping the first notes quiet, life trains your perception, your patience, your ability to act on subtlety. That's a muscle worth having after October 5th, because windows keep coming and the best ones rarely begin with neon. So when the day looks ordinary but feels tilted, when the email tone is different, when the meeting breathes easier, when your chest is lighter for no measurable reason, don't shrug. Don't declare it meaningless. Pause. Log it. Respond 1 inch stronger, 1 degree clearer, 1 decision braver. This is how you meet a moment before the moment becomes obvious to everyone else. This is how the next section of your story begins, not with an explosion, but with a quiet yes you almost missed. When the signals start clustering, don't be surprised if everything gets harder, louder, and weirder at the same time. That's not sabotage. That's physics. Systems resist change most fiercely at the point the change is about to become irreversible. The pressure you feel at the edge isn't a verdict. It's a tell. Like a sealed valve beginning to whistle. The noise means the buildup has reached a level that can't stay contained. You're inches from open, which is why the obstacles act like they're multiplying. They aren't multiplying. They're consolidating, showing themselves all at once because you've finally walked far enough to meet them. Think of digging through dense rock toward a chamber you can't see. The last inches are the most punishing because each strike moves dust instead of daylight. Your arms are heavy, your lungs sting, and every part of you wants a receipt right now. The trouble is that the only proof available at the lip of a breakthrough is faith in your math. You know the direction is true, your maps are good, the reverberation has changed, but your eyes still report nothing. That mismatch between inner certainty and outer feedback is the stress test. If you can't hold your center there, you swing wide or you stop swinging. But if you keep your swing honest, measured, exact, without theatrics the wall gives, people romanticize resilience as a roar. Often, it's a whisper you repeat. It's the sentence you tell yourself when your limits pretend they're laws. One more clean rep, not a wild, desperate heave. A clean rep, crafted, technically sound, respectful of your form. Michael Jordan's myth starts with a cut from his high school team. The truth is what he did next. He didn't go home and decide destiny was unfair. He built a practice engine that outlived the humiliation. He turned no into a schedule, hours in a gym long after the sting faded. When the next invitation came, the body he'd built could cash it. That's the point. The door doesn't reward the size of your feelings. It rewards the shape of your discipline under pressure. In labs and workshops, the same pattern holds. A researcher runs iteration after iteration, often hitting a dreary run of null results right before the data finally pops. Psychologists call this part of the process extinction burst in another context, when a behavior you're trying to change gets louder just before it dies. Your old patterns do that. They throw a party on their way out, crank the music, and try to convince you they're permanent. They aren't. They're just noisy because they can sense their eviction notice. If you need a structure for the hardest hour, carry a 3-step kit. Narrow, normalize, and nourish. Narrow, when stress spikes, your field of view widens in all the wrong ways. You start tallying every deficit and future tripping through catastrophe scenarios. Pull your attention down to the next unit you can guarantee. 1 page, 1 call, 1 set, 1 email. Not because small is cute, but because small is controllable. The last mile of anything is built from perfect inches. If you stack enough clean inches, the mile finishes itself. That's not a slogan. It's how complex work crosses thresholds. Normalize. Fight the urge to label difficulty as proof you're off track. Replace "this shouldn't be happening" with "this is exactly what the edge feels like." Ultrarunners are taught to expect hallucinations in the small hours. Shadows that look like animals, rocks that look like cabins. They train not to panic at brain noise. You can do the same with project noise. The bad meeting that spirals your mood, the sudden self-critique that feels definitive. Name it as a symptom of proximity, not a prophecy of failure. Oh, right? My system is flaring because we're close. Nourish. Edges eat fuel. They burn glucose and attention at a rate that catches unprepared people off guard. So you treat your body and your calendar like they matter. Hydrate. Eat real food. Sleep like the work depends on it, because it does. Put boundaries around the hours that actually make your outcome move. If your day is a patchwork of pings and favors, your edge will chew you up. The cleanest breakthroughs look from the outside like someone who protected a handful of sacred blocks and refused to negotiate with chaos while the window was open. There are micro-tactics that help when your willpower is thin. Write yourself an edge script while you're calm. 2 or 3 sentences you'll read at 10 p.m. when you're tempted to quit or catastrophize. Something like, "This heaviness is a sign, not a sentence." 1 structured hour, then stop. "Tomorrow gets easier because I honored the form tonight." Pre-commit your next move so choice fatigue can't hijack you. Set an if, then contract. If I hit resistance at the 40-minute mark, then I take a 5-minute walk, drink water, and come back for 20. Rig the game toward continuation, not heroics. Understand the difference between a stopping rule and quitting. Stopping rules are pre-decided limits that keep you safe. If I'm rewriting the same paragraph for more than 2 hours, I stop and ask for outside eyes. If my form collapses under load, I rack the weight. That's wisdom, not weakness. Quitting is what happens when you let the discomfort write your plan in real time. Discomfort is a terrible strategist. It can be a good signal, but it shouldn't be your CEO. The edge will test your relationships, too. Not because people are malicious, but because systems prefer your old shape. When you start holding your time, like it matters, someone will interpret it as withdrawal. When you say no to keep your sprint clean, someone will read it as arrogance. This is part of the tax you pay for changing. You don't need to argue your case to everyone. Offer a single, clear sentence where needed. "This week is a push week. I'll circle back Friday." Then keep your word. The people who are supposed to run with you will adjust. The ones who refuse are telling you which rooms can't handle your next level. That information, while uncomfortable, is a gift. A quick word on self-talk at the edge. You don't need to become a cheerleader. You need to become accurate. The brain, under stress, cheats on the math. It sees one setback and predicts an era. It reads one person's disinterest as a total market vote. Fix the math. Pull real numbers. What did you actually ship this month? How many meaningful conversations happened? What percentage of your pipeline is warm? Accuracy reduces panic because it replaces fog with form. Once you see form, you can make a move. Also, consider surge capacity, the emergency energy humans can access for a short burst. It's real, but it's finite. Use it for the last 10%, not the whole marathon. If you've been white-knuckling for months, there's a reason you're brittle now. The solution isn't more clench, it's better pacing. The window around October 5th doesn't require sprinting for days. It requires a clean sprint at the moment of collapse from possibility into form. That's different. You pace the approach so you have gas for the cut. This is where routines save you. Routines are pre-made decisions that carry you when your mind wants to negotiate. Elite performers schedule edge rituals. The playlist that cues flow, the 90-minute block with the door closed, the 5-minute reset between blocks, the short walk without a phone to rinse cognitive residue. Boring? Completely. Powerful? Completely. Rituals are rails. Rails keep trains on time. You want a train arriving on October 5th with steam, not excuses. One more truth about the hardest hour. You will be tempted to invent side quests. Sudden organizational projects, perfecting tools, rebranding your deck, deep cleaning your office. These are avoidance behaviors in evening wear. They look responsible. They feel productive. They are delay. If the work that moves the outcome scares you, call it by its name and do it for 20 minutes. You'll discover that terror melts in a task once contact is made. The edge isn't defeated by grandeur. It's dissolved by contact. And when it really feels like you can't, shrink the unit further. Breathe in for 4, out for 6, 10 times. Name 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste. Then do 1 non-zero move toward the goal. Open the dock, start the timer, send the message. Non-zero is a door. Through it is momentum. Through momentum is relief. Through relief is perspective. From perspective, the wall looks thinner again. What if, despite all of this, you break? You miss the mark, you blow the meeting, you say the wrong thing at the worst time. Then you practice the single most underrated resilience skill: fast repair. Apologize cleanly, fix what can be fixed, document the lesson, and re-enter the plan within 24 hours. Shame will try to drag you into a week-long trial. Decline the invitation. Failure is expensive enough, don't pay interest. So yes, the edge will try to convince you it's definitive. But you've been collecting evidence that you can outlast the pose. You have your narrow, normalized, nourished kit, your stopping rules, your rituals, your non-zero moves, your accuracy over drama, your surge capacity protected for the right minute. Put them to work. The wall doesn't announce when it's about to give, it just gives. Then, absurdly, you'll feel like you've stepped into a bigger room with more oxygen and wonder how close you were all along. That's the quiet hilarity of thresholds. The heaviest resistance sits right before the hinge. On the other side, the weight drops, the work changes shape, and the energy you spent holding the door closed becomes the energy that propels you forward. Which is exactly why you honor the edge, for a little longer, with a little more clarity, until the date that's been circling you meets the person you have become, and the opening is no longer hypothetical. It's here, and you're already moving through it. Here's where the abstract becomes actionable. You don't need a physics degree to use the principles that run through everything, from light beams to life pivots. You only need to practice 3 moves: choose, observe, and collapse. In plain English, that means setting a clear intention, watching reality in a way that stabilizes what you're choosing, and then letting possibilities narrow into form on the right day. October 5th is that day. But the collapse won't respect a vague wish. It responds to coherence, the alignment between what you say, what you feel, what you do, and what you allow. Start with choice, not wanting. Wanting is scarcity in a tuxedo, an elegant way of telling the world, I don't have it. Choice says, this is the line I'm standing in. Choice is quiet, specific, and measurable. If you find yourself writing sentences that start with I hope, swap them for I choose. I hope to be seen becomes I choose to speak with clarity in rooms that can use what I offer. I hope my business grows becomes I choose to put this offer in front of 50 decision makers this month. Choice anchors behavior. Behavior creates a signal. Signals organize outcomes. Observation is the second pillar. Most people observe their lives like nervous security guards, eyes darting for threats. That kind of watching agitates the field. Picture a pond. Throw pebbles of panic at it, and your reflection breaks into shards. Coherent observation is different. It's steady, curious, low-drama attention that lets the image resolve. Practically, that looks like checking on your process at set intervals without spiraling. 10-minute review at noon, 5 minutes at the close of the day, 1 hour weekly to adjust. Not every hour, not every second, not every heartbeat. Too much inspection freezes the system. Think Zeno effect without the jargon. Too little inspection lets it drift. The middle path is rhythm. Enough observation to keep the signal clean, not enough to choke the flow. Now collapse. Before it happens, you live in a cloud of maybe. Multiple versions of your future are available. The one where you delay and the window lifts. The one where you act and the bridge holds. The one where you act but in the wrong room. The one where you act in the right room with the wrong words. Collapse is when one of those lines hardens into real. And here's the part that people miss. Your state influences which line hardens. Not because you're a wizard waving a wand, but because systems prefer consistency. If you've been practicing consistency between your intention and your action, the branch that matches that consistency becomes the easiest one to crystallize. Coherence is the glue. It's not perfection, it's agreement across layers. If your calendar denies what your mouth declares, the field hears the calendar. If your body is running on fumes while your plan expects precision, the field hears the body. If your tone says, please pick me, while your content says, I can help you, the field hears the tone. Coherence is when all the channels broadcast one message. You build it the way you build a chord. You tune each string until the instrument sings without dissonance. Words tuned, emotions tuned, actions tuned, environment tuned. Then you strum. But what about barriers? There will be some your logic can't outclimb. That's where tunneling lives, a principle that sounds like sci-fi until you've experienced it. You arrive at a wall that's taller than your timeline or your current resources. You don't go over it or around it. You keep your intention coherent, and the solution appears on the other side, as if the barrier briefly turned to vapor. In practice, tunneling looks like a "that was never on the list" introduction, an email from a closed door, a route that bypasses the gate you've been rattling. It doesn't reward frantic pushing. It rewards a clean signal held long enough for a path to show. The quality of attention you bring to this matters more than the quantity. Anxiety-heavy attention creates noise. Presence-heavy attention creates order. Try this experiment during the lead-up to October 5th. For 3 days, reduce anxious checking by half and increase intentional presence by double. When you write, fully write. When you pitch, fully pitch. When you rest, fully rest. Watch how the work densifies. Coherence hates leakage. When you stop smearing your energy across 5 tabs of half effort, the field stops mirroring smears back at you. A word about identity. The collapse selects not only an outcome, but a version of you. If your old identity clings to the worldview that kept you safe, I'm the one who gets close. I'm the one who carries the load quietly. I'm the one who tries. The field complies and preserves that script. Coherence sometimes requires a symbolic act of retirement. That could mean cleaning out a folder labeled "Someday," sunsetting an offer that dilutes your best work, letting a title go that flatters the ego but stars the purpose. You're not burning bridges. You're freeing bandwidth. The you that crosses this bridge can't drag yesterday's costume across and still move clean. Language is a fast lever. Replace performances of certainty with commitments to clarity. Instead of "I know this will happen," try "I'm committed to the actions that make this inevitable." Instead of "everything is changing," try "I'm behaving like the person whose life changes." That swap keeps you honest and keeps your nervous system from flagging the statement as a lie. The body relaxes when your words match reality, plus one clean step. Relaxed bodies execute better. Better execution sharpens the signal. Sharper signals collapse faster. Let's make this tactile. Pick one choice sentence that names your October 5th intention. Write it at the top of a page. Under it, list 3 behaviors that prove it's real this week. Under that, list 2 environmental edits that make those behaviors easier. Move the phone, stage your tools, pre-block the calendar. Finally, write one sentence you will not say anymore because it leaks your signal. That page is coherence on paper. Revisit it morning and night, quickly, calmly. That's observation. When you act on the 3 behaviors consistently. That's the path to collapse. You can layer a community amplifier onto this without turning your life into a performance. Share a calibrated version of your choice sentence with one person who holds you to your best, not to your comfort. Ask them to reflect your coherence back when they see it and to call out your leaks when they hear them. Agreement with one witness multiplies attention. Multiplied attention thickens the field around the choice. Thick fields are easier to walk through because they hold your shape. And yes, the observer effect cuts both ways. Stare nervously at a possibility too frequently, and you can freeze it. This is why you give your goals specific windows of attention and then look away to the task, to the breath, to a walk. The goal doesn't need a babysitter. It needs a competent builder. Builders measure, cut, and assemble. They don't pace in circles around the blueprint whispering, "Please be real." A steady cadence of look, act, release beats a jittery trance of constant surveillance. You may notice a side effect as coherence grows. Nonsense falls away. Rooms that used to trap you lose their pull. Conversations that kept you defending yourself end sooner. Offers that once felt tempting read as off-key. This is not you becoming cold. It's you becoming tuned. A tuned instrument sounds harsh to ears accustomed to drift. Hold your pitch. The right band will hear you. There's also a social physics to recognize. Fields stabilize faster when multiple observers hold the same frame. If a team is aligned, truly aligned, on a choice, the collapse speeds up. If a family shares language about a change, the household stops ambushing the person who's trying to change and starts supporting them. You don't need everyone. You need enough coherence for the pattern to self-reinforce. That's why a single honest conversation can change a month. It aligns perception, which aligns behavior, which tilts reality. If you want a litmus test that you can run today, try the coherence audit. For 1 hour, move through your tasks and ask 4 quick questions at each step. Does this action match my declared choice? Does my body feel recruited or resentful? Is my language clean or hedged? Is my environment helping or hazing me? Any no is a leak. Patch 1 leak per day. Not all of them. 1. Watch what happens in a week. Coherence is less about heroics and more about leaks reduced to almost none. Approach October 5th like a craftsman setting a final piece. The prep is done. The fit is tested. You've sanded what wobbled. You've tossed what didn't belong. You're not jamming a misshapen object into a tight slot. You're placing a matched form into its frame. That's collapse. Not magic, but precision. You'll feel a click. The room may not erupt. You might not even hear applause. What you'll notice is that friction drops and the work ahead stops arguing with you. That sensation, a clean slide where a grind used to be, is your receipt. Finally, remember the simplest rule of this whole sequence. Attention is admiration, and what you admire grows. Admire courage by practicing small courage daily. Admire clarity by speaking one sentence more plainly than you did yesterday. Admire discipline by showing up at the hour you promised yourself you would. Attention applied like this is not wishful thinking. It's a sculptor's hand. You shape the stone by where you place your focus and how consistently you keep it there. The statue was always in the block. Coherence just frees it faster. So choose, observe, and let it collapse. You're not begging a reluctant universe. You are partnering with a lawful one. On October 5th, the pattern you've been rehearsing becomes visible. And because you decided to be one person across your words, your work, and your world, visibility won't shock your system. It will fit. That's the point. Not spectacle. Fit. The click of a life snapping into alignment and staying there long enough to build something worthy on the other side. There's a reason harvest seasons come with urgency. Ripeness has a shelf life. Fields can look ready for months and still demand that you act inside a narrow slice of time, or else the fruit turns, the weather shifts, and the moment you work for takes a different form. October 5th is a harvest date, not because a calendar is magic, but because coherence peaks. Conditions align, your preparation, the rooms you're now visible in, the people who have entered your orbit at the exact angle you needed, the pressure that forged you in Section 4, the signal you've held in Section 5. And like every real harvest, this one asks for one thing you can't outsource. You stepping across the bridge while it's down. Cross now does not mean panic. It means precision. The bridge doesn't require a sprint. It requires a decision that carries weight. A call you've avoided because you wanted one more week of polishing. A launch you've delayed while you waited for perfect language instead of clear language. A relationship conversation you've rehearsed alone, but never in the room where it matters. In coherent time, when past practice, present readiness, and future trajectory overlap, the smallest clean move counts like a multiplier. That's the nature of thresholds. The action that would have bounced last month lands now. Not because the universe suddenly favors you, but because your life is finally speaking in one voice. Coherent time feels different from clock time. Clock time says 10 minutes is 10 minutes. Coherent time says this 10 minutes is worth a week because everything's tuned. You felt this. A 30-minute meeting shifts an entire quarter. A 2-paragraph email unlocks a partnership. A quiet apology resets a friendship. The temptation is to mythologize these moments, to believe they can't be engineered. But you've been engineering one, slowly, patiently, by becoming legible to the opportunities that can use you. October 5th isn't superstition. It's a crest in the wave you've been paddling toward. Ride it while it's under you. There's a second layer here, the collective field. You're not the only one arriving at a hinge. When enough people choose alignment at once, the background conditions change. That's why certain industries pivot seemingly overnight, why cultural tastes shift, why an idea that once needed a long preamble now lands without a translator. Call it morphic resonance, call it social proof, call it common sense catching up. The name matters less than the effect. A field thick with coherent choices lowers friction for everyone inside it. When you make your move, you add weight to the side of the scale that helps someone else make theirs. That's not a burden, it's leverage. You benefit from those ahead of you. Someone benefits from you. Practically, this is how you move inside the brief harvest window. First, shorten loops. Reduce time between signal and response. If a door cracks, step through enough to keep it from swinging shut. Don't smother it with eagerness. Stabilize it with competence. Second, elevate your defaults. Good enough in September isn't good enough now. Upgrade small margins. The subject line that earns an open, the slide that clarifies the offer, the 30 seconds at the top of a call where you frame the room with calm authority. Small margins swing choices when conditions are tight. Third, make 2 lists. List A, irreversible moves that align with the life you're choosing. Ship the offer, set the boundary, sign the deal, book the ticket. List B, reversible experiments, pilot the format, test the price, run the room for 20 people instead of 200. Put at least one item from each list into play. Irreversible moves honor the window's finality. Reversible experiments keep learning velocity high without paralyzing you with all-or-nothing stakes. The blend keeps you brave and smart, not brave and reckless. Fourth, protect the exit ramp from old habits. Windows close, and when they do, inertia tries to draft you back into the familiar. Write a post-window plan now, before adrenaline takes over. That keeps the gains. On October 6th, I will do X, Y, Z to consolidate the change. Lock one meeting with a new collaborator. Send one follow-up that cements the agreement. Archive one obligation that no longer fits. Thresholds are notorious for breakthroughs that dissolve because no one built a container for them. Be the person who brings a container. Fifth, anchor a symbol. Humans are story-shaped, and symbols mark chapters. We're the ring you promised yourself when you finally honored your boundary. Donate the clothes that fit the version of you who apologized for existing. Frame the first invoice that paid you for the work you do best. These aren't trophies. They're reminders that you crossed. When the next window comes, you won't be guessing who you are. You'll have receipts within arm's reach. Let's acknowledge the fear that flares when the bridge appears. It's wild how the mind prefers the orbit it knows to the trajectory it wants. The simplest antidote is honest math. What is the cost of an action during a narrow window? Not a vague, I'll regret it, but a clear set of consequences. Delayed revenue, diluted confidence, stalled momentum, a room that learns to stop waiting for you to speak. List them, then list the risks of action, real ones. Put them side by side. Half the fear disperses when you move from ghosts to numbers. The other half disperses when you act. Remember the difference between noisy bravery and quiet sovereignty. Noisy bravery tries to prove it isn't scared. Quiet sovereignty admits it is and moves anyway, without theatrics. On October 5th, choose sovereignty. The bridge doesn't need you to shout. It needs you to walk. Also remember that bridges lift. This one will. Not in a punitive way, in a physical way. The variables that made this window possible, specific people with specific bandwidth, conditions in a market, your current readiness, will reconfigure. Another window will come, someday, somehow, but it won't be this one. Relief floods in when you accept that truth without making it melodrama. Not again like this is a gift because it frees you from waiting for perfect conditions to repeat. They won't. You don't need them to. You need to step into the present conditions while they are true. You might be tempted to ask for one more sign. You have enough. You have the density built in stillness, the whispers recorded, the edge endured, the choice made and observed. The fruit is soft, the sky is heavy, the field is loud with quiet. Cross now. Speak to the person who can say yes. Submit the work. Ask for the number. Change the setting from drafting to shipping. Make yourself findable by the outcome you claim to want. Don't wave at the shore from the boat dock. And if, in the act of crossing, you feel time bend, if minutes dilate and decisions land with a sense of course, if conversations click into place and the next steps present themselves with almost arrogant clarity, don't be spooked. That's coherent time doing what coherent time does. It feels like a cheat code because you spent years playing on hard mode. Hard mode taught you how to listen. Listening brought you here. Here asked for a clean yes. The moment you step across, your job shifts from pursuit to stewardship. Pursuit hunts. Stewardship tends. You don't need to stay hyped. You need to stay attentive. The bridge will rise. Your new ground will still need you. Steady, present, precise. There's a tenderness to arrival that people miss when they're addicted to the chase. Let be tender. Let the scale of your life increase without you spiking your nervous system to match. You didn't cross to become frantic at a higher level. You crossed to operate with more room. You've been walking toward this scene for months, maybe years, without the name for it. Now you have one. October 5th. The bridge is down. The field is thick. The fiction that you must wait to be picked has expired. You pick. Not everything. The next right thing that proves you're already living inside the story you chose. Then another. Then another. The door won't slam on your hand if you move with care. It will hold for exactly as long as a clean yes needs to pass through. And then it will close as it should. Because the point of a window was never to be permanent. It was to move you. If you've stayed with me to this point, you're not just listening, you're choosing. Seal it with intention. Drop this in the comments. I cross the bridge now. Let that be your clear yes, your commitment in public, your signal to the field that you're moving with coherence before October 5th.